Hey everybody, what's happening? The past few weeks I've been thinking about making a video about my video game collection and some other collections that I have as well, and just kind of showing it off and maybe talking about some stuff. It's something on stream I've been talking about a lot, you know, and some other people had shown some interest in it and everything, and thought it'd be kind of fun and maybe talk about some specific games and consoles that I like, and just kind of go over where my collection is as of now, you know, just where it's at, and how long it's taken me to get it, and just some little things like that, just kind of showing some of the more interesting things I might have, and kind of talking about them. It's interesting because, for one thing, I think I don't typically fall into one specific type or category of collector. I know, especially with like retro game collecting and probably other collections too. I know that retro games is just my main one. That, you know, there's different types of collectors. Some people collect for nostalgic purposes. Some people collect, they're like want to do like preservation stuff. I don't really fall into any one category. I kind of sort of fall into a little bit of all of them. Some things I like having originals of, and I like to have in really good condition or best I can find, and other things I might be more like, you know, if you can make it look better, if it's in bad shape or rough shape, and clean it up with something like a new reproduction case or something, you know, sometimes I think that's fine, depending on what it is. And then there's other times where I'm like, you know, I kind of like those stickers and everything that people sometimes dislike, because it might be a, you know, specific sticker of an old video store that I have an attachment to or something like that. So, you know, I'm a little bit of all of them at certain times. You know, it just depends on the game, personally, to me. But mainly I've always collected just for the purpose of, I like collecting things. I love video games. It's always started very simple when I was little, just getting one game at a time, and it's just built from there. It's never been so much of a thing that I'm sort of collecting as like an investment purpose. It's always like just been, you know, I want this game, I like collecting, I remember this game, I liked it, or whatever it is, you know. So I'm kind of just all over the place with my collecting in general, you know. And I'm a huge advocate for emulation too. So I'm kind of weird, you know. I like collecting physical games, but I also always encourage and advocate for emulation too. So I'm sort of all over the place, but I figured we'd check it out. I can show off some other collections too, and I'll probably do it in multiple parts maybe, and we'll just kind of talk about some games, because I don't want it to be too long. If I get rambling and we go over the whole collection, it'll probably be way too long of a video, so I'll just stick with doing a few parts, and yeah, we'll just go from there, kind of talk about some of the games and why I have them, and all that, you know. So let's go ahead and check it out, and yeah, we'll get to it. Okay, let's check this out over here. First thing I got to say, you'll have to excuse the shakiness of the camera, because I wanted to have my shotgun mic mounted to the top of the thing, because I wanted it to sound a little bit better, and as a result I can't really use my gimbal because it's not, you know, I can't have both, so I decided to just use it by hand, so you'll have to excuse the shakiness. But let's check out some of the games that I have. Right here, I have this manga collection that I just started. It's small. Just ignore that. I don't really have its own shelf yet. So, but anyway, that's just there for now because I had to move some stuff. But we'll just start with some small stuff first, and go from there. So a lot of the game collections that I have, some of them aren't really huge collections. I have a little bit of everything, but some of these collections are consoles that I'm not crazy about, I'm not really huge about, so I don't really collect past the handful of games that I really like or that I'm interested in, you know what I mean? Like Xbox, the original Xbox is kind of one of those, GameCube and 64 kind of another one. So, and then there's other things that I just didn't get super into until it was kind of too late for the market to be viable for me to afford. You know, right now, one of my main gripes right now is the market for a lot of retro games is so high that it's, you know, sort of out of reach for a lot of people, myself included. You know, it's sort of pricing a lot of people out, you know. But there's, you know, some ways around that. But anyway, regardless, so here's the Saturn collection I have. I don't have a ton of US games. Well, for that matter, imports either, but I prefer imports. I prefer the Japanese market much more than the US market. I don't like the big boxes. A lot of the US games were very much trying to be 3D and not, like sort of the more 2D games and trying to get really nice 2D like the Japanese ones. So I don't really go after US Saturn games that much. So that's why I don't have a ton of them, you know. But this is a fairly new, I say recent, the past 10 years, I guess, 5 to 10 years, I've gotten into Saturn stuff more. And every once in a while, I'll like, you know, buy an import, and just one at a time, you know. My collection as a whole has been a marathon, not a race. This is many years of my life slowly building this collection. So, but anyway, some of the first, like Croc and Fighting Vipers, Sonic Jam, these were kind of some of my first games. My first Saturn came from a garage sale that a friend, my buddy Leroy, and I went to a garage sale that was around his house. It's way out in the country, and there happened to be somebody there selling a ton of Saturn stuff. So they had a steering wheel, a Saturn. He already had a console, so I took that, and then we went half on it and just split up everything. And like Croc was a part of that. Darius Gaiden is one of my more interesting games, which the case is in bad shape. I need to get that fixed. Fighting Vipers is a great fighting game. This is one of my favorites. It was an early like Sega fighting game. It's a really good 3D fighter that I wish would kind of come back, but I mean, we can't even get Virtua Fighter back, so good luck with that. Sonic Jam is one that's really interesting. I always thought this was very neat. I had this as one of my early ones, and I didn't realize that this was a sought-after game until recently, apparently. I guess. I just had it. I thought it was a shitty compilation of Sonic games with a little 3D, because like they aren't as good as the originals, obviously, but they had like a little 3D section you could do and all that. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but it's one of those games that apparently is I don't know, it's a hard to find one, I guess. I have no, I don't really know. Sometimes I'm aware that some of my games are pricey. Sometimes, I'm aware of that sometimes, but I don't really often look into why. Sometimes I don't care, because it doesn't really matter to me. I'm not really going to sell it anyway. I like it, so I don't really give a shit as far as how much it's worth. Other times I can't help but have to be aware of it, because maybe I had to buy it, I wanted it, and then I have to pay that much. That's rare occasions, though. Very rarely do I splurge and buy a game for a very pricey or very expensive price, mostly because I usually don't have the money. But on the off times that I do, sometimes I splurge, right? Sometimes I'll treat myself if I'm really wanting something. And one instance of that I treated myself was this here. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a big Castlevania fan, and I always wanted, that reflection is terrible, I always wanted the Saturn Symphony of the Night because it has extra stuff. It has you can play as other characters. It has extra stages. It's very interesting. If it had, I almost do prefer this version. I think I prefer it just for the fact that it has extra stuff, but I wish it was like faster. It kind of has some performance issues, some stuff like that, but very interesting. But this was one of the few times I actually treated myself, and I had to pay a nice price for this, but it was at a convention and it was a good deal, so I treated myself. And then here's just a lot of other Saturn stuff I have that imports. These are a lot of like puzzle games I really love. 2D like competitive puzzle games like Puyo, and like this one here where you have to put bombs in a certain order and light fuses and stuff. Very cool stuff. I like these games quite a bit, and they're pretty affordable if you're importing, Virtua Fighter 2, Last Bronx. A lot of Sega Saturn stuff is fairly affordable. It's, so and the Japanese stuff specifically. So, I tend to gravitate more towards this market. But, anything can be ruined. So it's only, who knows, maybe only a matter of time. Who knows, before it's so pricey, you can't do anything about it, But, these are my very few Sega CD games. I was never a huge fan of the Sega CD. I never had one for the longest time. So I only have a handful of games, and I look for these when I can, like I'm a really big fan of this game in general. I love the Genesis version of this game, and so the Sega CD version has like cutscenes, and it has like better music, and etc. So I have that one. But other than that, I don't really have a whole lot of Sega CD games. Not that I don't like it. It's just another one that I don't put a lot of focus into. Okay, so the Xbox games. I had an original Xbox when they first came out. That generation, I actually got an original Xbox, before anything. That was my console of choice, and it was literally just for this game. Like, I love the Oddworld series. It's in my top 5 favorite series, and it was focus. This was like an exclusive, so I had to get it. I remember very specifically buying this game before I even owned the console. Like, that's how much I was like, I wanted it really bad, because I loved Oddworld on PlayStation. But slowly, of course, I got like Halo and all that. But that's just, and also I got really into Dead or Alive. Like, at that time, you couldn't, there wasn't a ton of it was kind of a weird era for fighting games that was around 2000 or 2007, around there. I think, often people, we called it the Dark Ages is what we always called it, because there wasn't a ton of options. The online was non-existent or very shoddy. Not much has changed as far as that goes, but there wasn't many options for online play, and arcades were just non-existent for most of the country. So you just had to have console version and have friends. That was your only option, So because of that reason, I got into Dead or Alive really heavy. That's one of my favorite fighting game series now. Because of that reason, there wasn't a whole lot of options, I don't think, for me. I mean, you had CVS and all that came out, around that time, but I don't know. I found Dead or Alive to be one of the ones that I hooked onto. There was that in Guilty Gear, some Guilty Gear games, but there just wasn't a ton. It was in the fighting game scene, and the fighting game genre was in a very weird place at the time. I have a lot of sort of try to go after some Sega exclusives that were on Xbox, because shortly after Sega and the Dreamcast ended, they started making third-party games for all 3 consoles, and they were different for each console, the games that they were putting out. So PlayStation would get Virtua Fighter, Xbox would get Panzer Dragoon, and GameCube would get Sonic or whatever, So I like those because I'm a big Sega fan. And I have this Castlevania here. I bought that brand new. That was one of my favorite. I stayed up all night with a buddy of mine. We played that, I swear, 2 days straight. It was so cool. Just your standard stuff. I try to go after some of the earlier exclusives, just the stuff you don't really see, like Jade Empire and things like that. I have Toe Jam and Earl 3 coming in the mail. That one I'm surprised it's taken me this long to get, because I used to rent it all the time. But yeah, just stuff like that. Shenmue 2, This is about the whole library I really care about, if I'm being honest. I really like these things. These are really interesting. These exhibition discs, $7.99. If you couldn't afford a full game, you could get one of these, which often I couldn't, right? So this would have demos, and they would also have videos. So this here, see, it says Halo 2 trailer, upcoming games. That was really interesting. It's just demo discs that you purchase, but the cool thing about it is that it would have these weird, corny videos of this guy teaching you how to hook up Xbox Live and stuff, and they're really funny. I think they're really interesting to this day. I was just talking to my buddy Buffalo about it, and we were sort of having a conversation about it. So those are interesting, but that's about it for Xbox. I liked Xbox at the time because it's the one I had, but over the years, I'm just not a huge fan of the library, the console in general. But Godzilla, this is a Game Boy Advance game. This is a separate collection. I'm also a big Godzilla fan, so ignore that. That's like a Game Boy cleaner. Okay, so let's look at the 360. Now, I don't have a whole lot of 360 games either. This console I thought was fine initially. I got this. This is another instance. You'll notice maybe with some of this stuff is I choose my consoles based off of like a game. I know exclusives aren't really what they used to be. The idea of the exclusives are kind of different now, since most things like have either crossplay or they'll come out on multiple consoles or whatever. But exclusives like made a console decision for me. And another decision was that the new Perfect Dark game was coming out on 360, and I'm a huge fan of Perfect Dark also. That's one of my favorite games ever. So when I heard that the new one was coming out and it was going to be on 360 only, well, there you go. I had to buy the 360, which I was probably going to do that anyway because I had the Xbox, but that just like sort of solidified it, right? And this is my first copy of it, my original copy when it first came out. And then I kind of like with 360, I don't have a whole lot of stuff because that's really a console that library I don't really care much for, because I know a lot of the stuff was also on PS3 and so on and so forth. So Condemned is a great game. It's on PC also. This is an amazing game, you know, that I really like. And of course it had Dead or Alive, which I used to have the case for 4. I got rid of it because I didn't have the disc. I'm just going to have to buy it again. But this is like the volleyball game or whatever. This wasn't very good. The first one was. This is a fantastic game, but this one was kind of a stinker. But and this is like this weird shmup. It's kind of like, see, it says Gradius, inspired by by the legendary series Gradius. It's not a Gradius game, but it plays a lot like it. And just weird stuff, you know. Viva Pinata, not much. I'm like a huge fan on, but there was some interesting Sega titles on that too, like. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Sega Supercharged Tennis, which is basically like Virtua Tennis with Sega characters. Very cool. Anyway, all right, next is the GameCube, a console that I think is, I wouldn't say underrated. I know people have pretty fond memories of it, but another one that just didn't have a lot of stuff I liked. I'm not a huge Nintendo fan, so a lot of the ones like Zelda and things like that or whatever, I've never been a huge fan of those games. I like some of them, but it's just not really my thing. So a lot of, GameCube games, a lot of Nintendo consoles, like some of the best games are, first party Nintendo brand series, but not being a huge fan, that doesn't really sell me, So right here, I just have a handful of interesting ones. These are, sometimes I'll have some in here, and it's like, I don't necessarily have an attachment to them, but when I got them, maybe I bought, in this case, I think I bought most of these off of one person. It was like probably a garage sale, and they had a box of GameCube things. I think that may be what it is. And they were like, hey, $20 for the box or something. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. So I just buy the whole box. But there's Crazy Taxi here, which I really love. This game, which is kind of crazy, Dragon's Lair 3D, is insanely good. Like, I didn't even know this existed until I got it. It's like a 3D platformer game in the Dragon's Lair. Did I say Dark Souls 3D? Dragon's Lair 3D. I can't remember if I said that or not. My brain's not working. But it's a really good game. The Nintendo like sports games are kind of fun. Metroid Prime I think is Metroid Prime is like one of 3 Metroid games that I like. I only like a couple of them. And Prime is excellent. Very good game. Puyo Pop Fever. That's just because I'm a huge Puyo fan. Puzzle games. I do love these puzzle games. Puyo's always been one of my favorites, if not my absolute favorite. So this was really exciting getting this back when I figured out that it existed. So it's pretty neat. Yeah, I got all this stuff after this console was already dead. I didn't have this stuff when it was new by any means. This is all, like I said, garage sale shit. Melee. Brad bought me this as a gift. Pretty neat stuff. This one, pretty cool. That's all right. So I don't have any like super attachment to that console, and the Wii is another one that I don't really have much of an attachment for. I probably bought a few of these games again at a garage sale in a box. Castlevania Judgment, I just love, you guys know I love Castlevania, and this is actually a pretty fun game. I've talked about it on my tier list of Castlevania games. It has a lot of potential. It's a fighting game, but it's like an arena fighter. Could have been a lot better, but not bad. The Donkey Kong Country is really good. This one I bought at Goodwill for the lulz, you know. Party Babies. Like a party game where you play with babies. I don't know. Looked funny. And just a couple others. Like Resident Evil's here. That's pretty neat. No More Heroes 2. That was a gift from a friend. Yeah, they're pretty cool. Sonic Colors. They're fine. You know, fine games. But again, the Wii is just one of those things where the vast majority of the library I just could care less about. And then the other tiny percent also. Just not a big fan. I thought that console was kind of I just thought it was kind of gimmicky, and it didn't have a ton of stuff that I liked, you know what I mean? Okay, so there's a couple collections here you can see crammed together, but the PS3, the time when I became a real big PlayStation fan was around the PS3, and it was because, like, remember, I had this first, right? Well, I had 2 or 3 of these consoles die on me. And I think after the third one, I was like, I'm not buying this shit again. I'm never buying an Xbox. And I didn't. I was so sick of those things breaking that I was like, nope, I'm buying a PS3 and I'm never looking back. And I'm kind of glad that I made that decision. Honestly, I ended up liking the PS3 much better. I'd say the only downfall was the fighting games online. If anybody played them back then knows that the online, it was not the optimal way to play fighting games online at the time. The 360 was much better, but for that reason. But at this time, I had like, you know, I think I had like an arcade stick at this time for like PS3 that I had won, and so I was like, I already have like a really good arcade stick for the PS3. I might as well do that. So I played it, and I don't remember it being too bad, but it wasn't, you know, it was online in the PS3 era, so fighting games were not the best. A couple notable things I have, sometimes I get really into these like weeb RPG games, even though I still have barely played this thing, but I saw these at a game store, or an anime store actually had these, and I thought they looked interesting. I'm kind of a sucker for like really colorful artwork type things, you know, that they're really pretty. And sort of like these cute characters or whatever. And it looked kind of fun. This one was like a 3-in-1 deal, so I thought, you know, that's a pretty good deal. It's 3 games in 1. I'll try it out. They're pretty cool, I guess. I haven't got to sink into them or anything, so I'm not really sure how they play. I know you have to, like, you know, sometimes I have a bad habit. Sometimes I will buy games and never play them. And I don't often do that. I try not to do that too often, but realistically, I think when you get to the size of my collection, it's going to happen. You know what I mean? It's unavoidable, you know. DOA 5, I played religiously when it first came out. I loved this game. Had Virtua Fighter characters as guest characters. This was such an amazing game. This is the one I played the most, and I was pretty good at. I was actually like, this is probably one of my best fighting games with DOA 5. And the Gundam Dynasty games are fantastic. I wish more of these would get made. These were so good. Just literally what it sounds like. If you're not familiar, it's just Dynasty Warriors, but in a Gundam universe. They're very good. And this focus is very bad. Come on. There you go. They're pretty cool. Great games. I know people love them. Yeah, nothing too like Mortal Kombat. Fantastic game. So, and I got some down here. For a little while, I was like, I'm going to try to get the exclusives that PS3 is famous for. This is around the time the PS4 had been out for a couple of years. So the PS3 prices were dropping drastically, and that was the time to jump, and get some of those. So I was like, okay, well, Resistance, right? There was 3 of those. I'm going to get all those. And Tomb Raider, or not Tomb Raider, but like the Twisted Metal and Uncharted and yada yada. I was like trying to get them all, but I obviously didn't do that. I do like the Uncharted games. I'm glad I got all 3 of those. The Virtua Fighter 5, amazing. Valkyria Chronicles is one that I will play eventually one of these days. It's a Sega like RPG, tactical RPG series. It's very cool. It's sort of like, tactical war games or whatever. And I always thought it was pretty neat. I was like, oh, cool, a Sega, branded game or whatever, but then I just never I think I tried it, but it's very hard for me to do RPGs. I'm not like I'm just now in my life starting to appreciate them more because I'm not very good about the slow turn-based gameplay. I sometimes I find it boring a lot of the time. So, but I'm starting to get there, you know. Yakuza Dark Souls. This was my first Yakuza game I ever bought. Not exactly the one to start with, but good God, the focus. Thank you. Pretty cool though. This was a $10 game. Pretty cool. It's neat. It's Yakuza with zombies. It's a lot of fun. The 64 games down here. So this is realistically, with maybe the exception of 1 or 2 games, maybe every 64 game that I care to own. Another one there where I had this console. I don't know if I'd say I regret getting this choosing this console for my one console at the time when this was out, instead of the PlayStation or Saturn or whatever. But I think it was just mostly because I had a lot of friends who went the route of 64 at the time, so I wanted to go the way they did because all my friends did too. So, but and it was familiar. But part of me wishes I would have gone with like a Saturn or something. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I have the little end labels on here, and some of these games, like these boxed games, I just got recently. So my partner in crime, Liz, or as most of y'all know her as Good Q in chat in like streams, her uncle had a lot of games that he kind of collected or acquired over the years, and he wasn't using them, and he just wanted them to kind of go to somebody who would take care of them, go to a good home. So he gave me these. I think they're interesting to have them in box. I would never go out of my way to buy anything in box for the 64. Anything usually in cardboard boxes, period, I avoid, because I just think that it just honestly, looking at them in cardboard boxes just kind of frustrates me, because I'm just like, this was so cheap, and I hate when consoles use cardboard boxes. But mostly because of this, there was no reason for it. But so there's a few of them. But yeah, I genuinely like Turok games. I have a soft spot for the South Park game just because it was like, new and edgy at the time. But honestly, I don't really, a lot of the games people love, I'm not like 007 is hard to play now. It hasn't held up. Pokemon Snap, I'm sorry. I know people like worship this game. Even back then when I was into Pokemon, I was a kid, I thought that was the dumbest fucking game I'd ever played. I was like, I can't believe y'all a bunch of suckers buying this shit for $60. But I can't stand that game. I know, so but anyway, so here's some of the noteworthy ones. So I have Castlevania 64 and Castlevania Legacy of Darkness. Castlevania 64, the first one, I prefer the first one. I think that's the better game, but they're both good. I just prefer the first one. That's easily my favorite Nintendo 64 game. It's one of my favorite games ever. I've been preaching this game to people and suggesting it for many years. I was shocked to learn people didn't like this because I loved it. Ever since it came out, I used to play it all the time, and I've always liked it. Conker's Bad Fur Day. I think Bomberman Hero I got for my birthday one year. This one is one that I kind of come across at a garage sale. Some of them, yeah. See, I got this at like a garage sale. Somebody had sold. It's just an interesting one. I keep it because it's an interesting one. Even if I'm not a huge fan of the game, I typically will keep them in the collection unless there's something I want to trade. Usually sometimes if I run into somebody that's like, oh, I want that box 007, it's like, okay, well, you got something sick you can trade, then, I'll use it for that. But these are all really good games. Gauntlet, Jet Force Gemini. I wish this would get another game. This is a really interesting game. Sci-fi game from Rare. It was a cool game. I had a lot of fun with it, and I don't think it ever really got another one. I don't think so. But I'd like to see that series come back. Zelda, again, not a huge fan. It's one of those that you can't help but, if you buy some 64, eventually you're going to run across it. You can't help but own it. You know what I mean? Blitz are great games. And there's Perfect Dark. I was talking about that. Here's my first game. The first game I ever owned was Rayman 2. I think this is one of the best 3D platformers ever. Maybe the best. I don't know. It's easily, maybe not the best. It's easily the best Rayman game, if you if you ask me. I think it's fantastic. It's got that sort of feel that like a lot of games that I really like have, like Battletoads in a sense. And what I mean is like Rayman it constantly changes how it plays. There's so much variety in it, and it does it really well. It's not just the same platforming thing over and over and over. And I always really like that about it. I love the pirate theme too. I think that's pretty neat. And then just a few others, like I said, Turok 2. I got this fucking game. Let me tell you a story about this fucking game. Turok Rage Wars. This is another one my brother and I would play a lot. My brother and I play games a lot. We used to rent it, we actually, for the longest time, we'd have to rent the Nintendo 64, the console too, on top of that. Because like for the longest time, we didn't have one. And we'd have to rent the console as well. So this one, I think, may have been one of them games we'd rent the console too. And so this game was like an arena shooter, multiplayer arena shooter type game, but in the Turok world. You'd have objectives and stuff. And we played this fucking game, and if you don't know about this, there's a glitch in this game where at a certain level on the 2-player campaign or something, it will break. Like it glitches out. It won't let you continue. No matter what you do on this one stage, you'll fail. You will not pass it. We tried for hours past that stage. We thought we kept doing the wrong thing. Maybe we were messing up, or we tried everything and we could never pass it. Years later, I found out, I didn't know at the time, but I found out later, that was actually a glitch in every copy of the game that was at launch or release. The black cartridge is bad. You can't do that. I mean, everything else works, but you could send your copy and I think proof of purchase or something, and you could get it replaced. And they would give you a fixed version that fixed that. It took that bug out, and then they would send you a cartridge, and it was gray. It would be a gray cartridge, not a black one, but it would have it fixed. So actually, if you look around and you want a copy of that that's actually fixed, look for the gray cartridge, but it's probably going to cost you $8 billion or some shit, probably, but whatever. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool though. It was a funny story, and it's pretty interesting, but yeah. All right, so thanks for watching, and thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll be back, or I'll be back with a part 2. We'll talk about some other stuff in my collection. So thanks for watching.